You're listening to the Speaking Tongues podcast. I'm your host, El Charisse. Each week, I sit down to a conversation with multilinguals where we discuss and celebrate language, life, and culture through our own perspectives. Episode 119, Speaking Sardinian. Hello, language lovers. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Speaking Tongues, the podcast and conversation with multilinguals. This week, I'm happy to bring you all this conversation with Dalila about her Sardinian language. In this episode, Dalila tells us about the language and its influences from Catalan and Spanish. We talk about the grammar of Sardinian, how it differs from Italian, and what it has in common with English. Who knew? Dalila talks about the differences between Sardinian spoken in the north and in the south of Sardinia, and how micro-regions of Sardinia have linguistic variations in pronunciation. We talk about the Sardinian literary tradition and how Dalila has spent time finding and uncovering the works of women in Sardinian poetry. We also find out about some of the other minority languages in Sardinia, which yours truly learned about for the very first time. Thank you so much to Dalila for sharing so much of your language and culture with all of us. If you enjoy episodes of Speaking Tongues, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Speaking Tongues podcast on Apple Podcasts, and like and subscribe on YouTube so that other language lovers like ourselves can find the show. And if you've been a longtime listener of the show or even a recent listener, you can now pledge ongoing support for the show on buymeacoffee.com or on patreon.com. And as you know, I wrote a book. My food zine of international language and cuisine Taste Buds Volume 1 is available now for purchase. Check social media for the sneak peek inside the book and make sure you purchase one for yourself and one for your friends. Links to all platforms are in the show notes. Okay, let's chat. Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I'm here today with Dalila. How are you today, Dalila? ¿Cómo estai?
Well, I'm very excited to be here. I'm super fine.
I'm so excited to talk to you, and I got so much that I want to ask you. I'm so excited. So thank you for making the time to come and talk with me.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. I like to start each episode with the same question, and that is, what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
Well, my first language is Sardinian, but also Italian, actually. So I can say that I consider myself a bilingual, but I also speak English and Spanish, a bit of French. I'm not very fluent in French. And back at school, I've learned German for 3 years, but I've completely lost it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Have you are in Sardinia right now. I'm a little jealous, but you're in Sardinia right now. And you've been able to learn so many different languages. Is that common in Sardinia? Do people learn various different languages? Are they interested in learning different languages? Or are they compulsory to learn at school? Like, how does it break down?
Well, actually, people here learn languages at school. At middle school, which is like a lower secondary school, students learn French and English, or English and Spanish. And then at upper secondary school, which is high school, they learn English. English is mandatory. And if you study in a liceo linguistico, in a linguistic high school, you study other 2 languages. They can be German, French, and Spanish. You decide.
Oh, okay, so you get to choose what you want to study. Oh, wow, that's cool. Is there an opportunity for, or maybe it's not needed, but do you have an opportunity to learn Sardinian?
No.
Okay.
I need to be very honest. I've learned Sardinia at home with my family because my parents use Sardinia and actually still use Sardinia with me.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity to study Sardinian at school.
hmm Do most people that you grew up with or people that you know, do most people learn Sardinian at home?
Yes, we can say that people speaking Sardinia learned that at home.
Mm.
But to be honest, my friends don't really speak Sardinian. They don't speak Sardinian because their parents never taught them.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that's sad.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I've been so fascinated by Sardinian language, personally. So I've told this story before, so this is it's your turn to hear the story. I used to live in Italy many years ago, and I had a group of friends who were Sardinian. They were from Cagliari.
Cagliari.
Yeah, Cagliari, sorry.
Mhm.
And I would listen to them speaking to one another. And I didn't really speak or understand Italian very well at the time. So I was listening to them and I was like, what are they saying? Like I couldn't understand anything, but I loved watching them talk. I loved watching them, and like the way that they spoke and I've been so interested to learn more, but like they couldn't explain things to me because I don't know. I mean, it was a different time. This is a long time ago. So, um I've been so fascinated with the language itself and the way that it sounds. And I would love for you to tell us, like, what is so unique about Sardinian? And, for people who haven't heard it and for people who maybe think it's, very close or very different than Italian, tell us some things about the language. What makes it stand out from Italian or, in the region at all? How do we communicate? How do we make sentences? How do we, tell us all the good stuff.
Okay, so to begin with, Sardinian language, as we know it today, comes from Latin, and it was born more or less 300 years before Italian. Okay, so the base of the language comes from Latin,
Mhm.
but during the centuries, Sardinian received some influences from Catalan and
Oh,
Spanish. Mhm. Because we were dominated for centuries by Spanish. And of course, Sardinian, starting from the 1700s, received also many influences from Italian language because of the Savoy domination. So today, the Italian influence is quite strong.
okay.
But there are also some words which are very peculiar because they came from Proto-Sardinian language. That is the language that was spoken in Sardinia before the Roman invasion. These words, let's say, are toponymy, the names of places, but they are peculiar because they are typically of the island.
Okay.
So this is more or less the history of the language. So from Proto-Sardinian to Latin, going through Catalan, Spanish, and Italian. The sentence structure of Sardinian is very similar to Italian. We have a subject-verb-object pattern. Also, there is a difference from Italian, which can be linked to Latin, because it's something that Latin and Sardinian still have in common. In the interrogative sentences, we used to put, we actually put the auxiliary verb at the end. So, just to make an example, if I want to say in Sardinia, have you understood? I would ask, comprendi quasi, which would be capito hai. In Italian, we say hai capito.
Hai capito.
So we put the auxiliary verb at the end. So let's say that the affirmative sentence is similar to Italian, but in the interrogative sentence, there are some differences.
Oh, okay. When you were talking about the Proto-Sardinian and the words that are topographical, you mean like words that refer to like nature and
Yes, nature or the name of some areas, the name of some places. For example, in some areas there is a nuraghe, okay, and that nuraghe has a name that comes from Proto-Sardinian.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but actually, to be honest, we know nothing more about Proto-Sardinian. Nothing left.
Wow, how crazy. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I'd love to hear some examples of like, and I'm gonna do this even though I don't want to do this, but I don't necessarily want to compare Italian and Sardinian, but I'd love to hear how those Italian influences not came into language, but how they affect the language and what are some things that are different. In my mind, I'm thinking when I see Sardinian, I see a lot of endings on the words, like with the letter U, and I don't know what they mean because I don't recognize them from the Italian that I've learned in school. So, like, what do those letters mean at the end, or you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. So let's talk about the gender of the language. Like Italian, we have a masculine and a feminine. Okay. In general, the words that ends with a are feminine. For example, the rose in Sardinian would be sa rosa.
Sa rosa. Okay.
So it's feminine. And then we have other endings. For example, words can end with a he or with a hi. In the north of the island, the words that end with a he, in the south ends with a I. For example, and this word can be both masculine or feminine, it depends. For example, I am from the south of Sardinia, and the flower, I call it suvrori.
Suvrori.
In the north, it's not suvrori, but suvrore.
Suvrore. Okay.
And the flower is masculine in Sardinian. But we have some words ending with E and I that are feminine. For example, the sister, Sazorri, in the south, and Sorre in the north.
Okay.
So it depends. Moreover, as you were mentioning before, we have words ending with O, and the words that in the north end with O, and with U in the south. And once again, here words can be both masculine and feminine. For example, the house in Sardinian, in my Sardinian, is Sadomo.
Sadomo.
Sadomo. In the north is Sadomo.
Sadomo.
The hurt, Sugoru, Sugoro. Okay.
I see.
Sadomo is feminine, Sugoro is masculine. So it depends.
Okay. Oh, that's so cool. Now that you're talking about North and South, are those differences throughout everything? Like if you're from the South and you go north, is it a really, really big difference in the language as it's spoken?
No, it isn't. As a matter of fact, it is the same language. We can say that if you have a good knowledge of your variety, you understand quite easily the others. And most of the time, it's just about how you pronounce the words, and this is it. So it's not a big difference. Of course, phonology can be a bit sticky. Okay, maybe if you are from the south and you don't speak properly Sardinian, it can be difficult to understand someone from the north speaking. But it depends on how proficient you are.
Okay. Is it only north and south, or is it regional? Like, are there different regions or?
Well, we can say that there are two macro variants, Campidanese in the south and Logudorese in the north. But actually, nowadays, linguists and scholars recognize another macro variant, which is Nuorese, spoken in the northeast of the island. Nuorese is more similar to Logudorese than Campidanese. In addition to this, in the central area of Sardinia, in the middle of Sardinia, there is a so-called gray area, like a belt, more or less.
Yeah.
Which in linguistic it's called amphizona. Here, some characteristics of the southern and northern variant, let's say that are mixed by the speakers.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But as I was saying before, the most difficult thing is the pronunciation, because the pronunciation changes a lot. Sometimes also the words
Okay.
may change. For example, a word like now, in my Sardinian, in Campidanese, is imoi. Now, imoi. But in the northern area and regions, it's como. Imoi and como, they are different.
Yeah.
If you don't know it, you may look like, what is como? But I would like to provide also an example.
Sure.
When I say the pronunciation is different. The word fox in my Sardinian Campidanese is mrajai.
Mrajai?
Yes, you pronounce it correctly. Well done. It's a very difficult word to pronounce. Mrajai in other southern areas is marjani. Marjani. But in the north is mazzone.
Mazzone.
The word is the same. It's just the pronunciation that is changing a lot.
See.
But the root of the word is the same.
I guess I'm wondering, like, and you're an adult and you know that the language changes, but I guess I wonder, how do you, like, when do you first realize, or not you, but anyone, like, when do you first realize, if you grow up in the South, when do you first realize that the people in the North speak completely different or pronounce things differently? Like, is it kind of like, do your parents tell you, like, okay, this is our, regional way of speaking and they speak different? Or is it like, one day you go to another city and you
Well, I'm going back to memory lane. Thank you for this question. Well, actually, I realized it reading a book. The book was written in Italian, but some sentences were in Sardinian. And I was just like reading them and what is this language? And I asked my Mom, is this Sardinian? And she said to me, yes, but it is the kind of language that is spoken in the north. And it was very challenging reading that book, because one thing is hearing Sardinian, another is reading it, because as English, Sardinian is not a transparent language, so we don't read, we don't pronounce it as we write it. And many people myself included,
Mm-hmm.
many people aren't able to read Sardinian because they can't write it. So if you don't know the rules, it can be very difficult to understand.
Mm-hmm. So it is a language that you see written in books and
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. There is also a very strong literature tradition.
great.
And we don't know anything about it because we don't study it at school. But we do have many poems dated back to the 1500s also.
Wow.
And many economical documents from the 12th century, for example.
That's
So, yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I think that's really great because like so many languages that are, they're spoken at home and they're not really taught. There are so many languages around the world and people don't have a literature tradition or they don't really see it written. It's mostly spoken. So that's really exciting to hear that.
Yeah, I've discovered it a few years ago because I have attended a university course at the University of Cagliari. And I realized that Sardinian literature tradition is quite relevant.
Mm,
We can say it's not an oral language as many people can think.
yeah. Where do we see like modern Sardinian literature? Is it like in novels or still people still writing poetry or is it mostly historical?
Both.
Okay.
It's both. It's about poetry and it's also about novels. I'm reading also translations in Sardinian. For example, one of the first book that I have read is Su Principeddu, Le Petits Princes.
Ah. Su Principedu?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Mhm.
Oh, that's so cool.
Nowadays, I'm focusing on poetry and
Hmm.
I'm reading poems also written by women. And this is incredible
Of
because,
course.
yes, they are not very well known, but I'm trying to discover them and to make them famous.
Yeah.
If I can say so, they are famous, of course, but many people don't even know about them. So every now and then I read a poem on my account. Or I translate it for the non-Sardinian speakers. This is fun.
That's amazing. Tell us who are some of the women? Who are some of the women and what is their poetry about? What are they writing about?
Several things, everyday life, feelings. A recent poet I've been reading lately is Anna Cristina Serra, Teresa Crestellani. They are really good. They write in Campidanese, so they are
Mm,
very easy for me to read and understand. I love them. I think they are great. Unfortunately, not well known, and their poems are not very easy to find.
mm,
There is something online, but you really need to research very carefully through the internet.
yeah.
But I mean, I think it's important to know that also Sardinia as a literature, and the literature is still very vivid today.
Yeah.
Uh, Many contemporary poets are still writing poems.
Hmm. I love that. And I ask this question to people sometimes because um I think that poets and well, writers, but also poets, specifically poets, are the ones who can keep a language alive. And they're the ones who can keep the language alive because the way that they use it, the way that they use language, it speaks to the way that people really feel. It's not just like, like a biography or just a report. It's very soulful. It speaks
I
to how
agree.
we feel in our heart. And then when you have people in the next generation reading, they will understand like how we felt and
Mhm.
how we loved one another, how we hated one another, how we how
Yeah, I
we
agree 100%. Yeah.
yeah. And especially I think historically it's so important, and I think people are realizing this now, like to find the women too, because historically that we don't pay attention to women and we don't pay attention to the women who are writing. So I love hearing that there's women who are writing poetry in
Yeah,
Sardinian. That's
they
amazing.
are.
Yeah. I want to read them too. I could read it in Italian, so I have to find some translations. I'd love to read it. Um, I was going to ask you about, so you said in the, when we started talking, you mentioned that some of your friends don't speak Sardinian
Mhm.
because their parents didn't share the language with them or teach the language to them at home. Um, I would I would love to know like how that or how you think that affects the future of Sardinian. Like, do people want to learn it? Like people who are older now, like do they regret not learning it when they were young? Are they trying to pass it on to their young children now? Like how has that gone from like grandparent to parent to child to grandchild and etc.?
Okay, this is a sticky one. So
Oh.
it is true that nowadays more and more people are forgetting Sardinia, or they simply don't transmit the language anymore to the new generations. But I think I have reasons to believe that the new generations are very willingly to learn it. At least um, people my age, I can see, I can feel that they are quite interested in learning the language and spreading the language. In fact, there are several associations that are trying to bring the language back. Okay, starting in the family context, but also at school. So people are trying to say, okay, Sardinian is our language, and we would like Sardinian to be taught at school.
Hmm.
Sometimes, also thanks to some project from Regione Sardegna, some courses are held at school. But
Okay.
of course, I'm talking about 30, 40 hours project, and this is not enough, of course.
Yeah.
But I can feel that something is moving forward, and maybe we are going in the right directions. At the same time, some people are fighting against what variety should be taught. Okay,
Oh.
because as I said before, there are at least three
Mm.
microvariants, but inside there are other little changes between one region and an area, for example. So many people are fighting in order to decide which variant should be taught. Someone would like it is a standard, someone would like it is Logudorese, someone Campidanese. I think that this is the most difficult part, to
Mm.
make people realize that Sardinian language is just one language, okay, and it is natural that the language varies. Also
Yeah.
a lot because the highland, also due to historical reasons, didn't develop the same way. Okay, so it is quite normal that the language varies. But it's quite difficult to make people understand that it's not about which variety to choose. I think that it is paramount to teach one, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the variant that it is spoken in that area. Because as I said before, if you get proficient in your variant, then it's a piece of cake to understand the others.
Yeah.
Okay. And let me say this, it is not only about Sardinian, because here in Sardinia, other languages are spoken, other minority languages, as you may know. And I think that it is important to save also the other languages like Tabarchino, Sassarese, Gallurese, and
Wait a minute.
Algherese.
There are so many others. I had no idea.
Yes. Okay, let's start with Tabarchino.
Okay.
Tabarchino is a Ligurian-like dialect that it is spoken in the south, in the Isle of San Pietro,
Oh my gosh.
and in Calasetta. Calasetta is a city in the north of the island of Sant'Antioco.
Okay.
Okay. And then in the city of Alghero, in Sardinian Saliguera, a Catalan is spoken. It's actually Catalan. Okay.
Wow.
Sassarese is spoken in the northwest, and Gallurese in the northeast. We can say that Sassarese and Gallurese are Corsican dialect with influences from Sardinian language, and also some Italian influences,
My
of course.
God. I did not know this. I love that.
Yeah, it's insane.
So the people who speak these other minority languages are speaking the language, they're speaking Sardinian, they're speaking Italian.
No, they don't speak Sardinian,
Okay.
or at least
Mm-hmm.
maybe someone does, but they speak Italian and their language, like
Right.
Italian and Gallurese, or Italian and Sassarese, or maybe even Sardinian, maybe. But in
Maybe.
general, in the northern coast, Sardinian is not spoken.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. This has already made me want to go to Sardinia like 10 times more. Like this is crazy. It's not crazy. It's cool. It's like it's so fascinating.
Yeah, I know. The other day I was in Calasetta in the north of Sant'Antioco, and I was like, okay, let's see if I can find someone speaking Tabarchino. Let's see. But unfortunately, I've always seen some signs
Mm.
written both in Italian and Tabarchino.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. Like
Mhm.
getting around the island and especially for like a tourist or for anyone, if you're from the south, you're going to the north or vice versa. Um, are the signs in Italian and in Sardinian or Tabarchino, etc.? Like,
Well, actually, we are not so lucky.
oh,
It depends from the town or the village.
okay.
Some villages and some towns have also Sardinian language, but not everywhere. It's not like Südtirol, for example, or the other
Mm,
minorities in Italy. So
okay.
it depends.
So, how do people who do speak Sardinian, how do they mix, if at all? How do they mix Italian and Sardinian together when they're communicating? Do you, again, not you
Mhm.
necessarily, but do people speak Sardinian like with their friends and family? Do they speak it out in the street? Do they speak it with strangers? Like, How does that work when you have these two languages being used together?
Sardinian is most commonly used inside a family circle with our parents, with our relatives, and friends. If you're so lucky to have friends speaking Sardinian. Personally, I speak Sardinian with my friends and parents. Even if not all of my friends speak Sardinian. And I can say that this is more or less what happened for everybody. You don't really speak Sardinian when you go shopping, for example. You don't really speak Sardinian at work.
Mm.
This is a shame. Personally, I'm trying to use Sardinian more and more, also outside my family circle. For example, I'm using Sardinian when I'm speaking with my Instagram friends. I have a lot of people on Instagram that speak Sardinian, and it's good to realize that you are actually having a conversation in Sardinian where probably 3 years ago I would have had the same conversation in Italian. So I think that it is also a choice. Okay, of course, it's easier to use Italian because you're used to speak Italian basically everywhere since when you were a child. And it's more challenging to use Sardinian because many people think that Sardinian is a limited language, that you cannot express many concept ideas, but this is not true.
Yeah.
The thing is that we believe it to be so simply because we are not used to speak Sardinian. Okay, so we forgot some Sardinian words, and maybe we are replacing these Sardinian words with some Italian calques, with some loan words. And this is a shame. Actually, and this is also one of my goals, is to show that you can basically say everything in Sardinian, okay? And it's something that I'm trying to do myself. It's try to use the Sardinian word, okay? Even if it's more difficult to remember. Sometimes I have to remember some words by heart because I've always listened to the Italian calc.
Right.
I want to be honest here. This is something I'm not ashamed of. Sometimes I make some mistakes, for example, and I realize later, okay, this was Italian, not Sardinian. Okay, I should have used another word, and I'm okay with it because I think it's normal because we are not taught the language at school.
Yeah.
We don't use the language outside the family circle, and so we use the always semantic fields all the time. And I think that speaking Sardinian outside your comfort zone is also useful to learn new words.
Yeah.
Okay, and so to become more fluent, for example. Okay, and this is something important, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I can tell you are very passionate about
I am.
the Sardinian language. In your heart, in your soul, what is your favorite thing about the language? What do you love about Sardinian?
I think that the language is the mirror of the culture. I think that Sardinian language is the representation of Sardinian culture, traditions, and to me, losing the language means losing my culture, my traditions. I really like how it sounds, even if when we were children, we were mocked because of our Sardinian accent by Italians. But I actually love my accent. you are probably hearing my accent even now, but I'm proud of it.
Since you brought up the culture and the traditions, I'd love to hear more about them. I'd love to hear more about some Sardinian traditions and maybe some that you love or some that are very popular.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, there would be a lot to say, but I would like to say something before I start. I think that every place it's unique in its own way. So I don't really like the idea that we are the best one in the world. You will hear many people saying so about Sardinia. Okay, no, I think that the world is a beautiful place. But that being said,
Absolutely. Yeah. You're right.
it is true that Sardinian is a quite relevant place. Okay, so just to mention Sardinian history, I cannot mention the Nuragic era and the Nuragic culture. So I was talking about Nuraghi before.
Mhm.
In Campidanese, we say Nuragi.
Nuraji.
They were like megalithic buildings built between the 1900s and the 1200 BC in the Bronze Age. And they are so incredible because they were made with these huge rocks. And when I was a child, I've always asked myself, but how? How did I manage? So today there are several theories. I'm not here to tell, but they are quite impressive and very mysterious because we can say that they were probably centers for the community life, social, political, and also economical spots. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is something unique, I think, in the entire world. I mean, nuraghi were be found only in Sardinia. So this is very specific and unique about the island.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Sardinia is very famous also for the sandy beaches. Okay, you probably have heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot to do, a lot to visit. Old mine sites, for example, archaeological sites from Nuraghi to Giant's Grave, medieval castles, mostly ruins of
Yeah.
medieval castles.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Sardinia is also a good spot for hiking.
I heard
Um,
that. Yeah.
Hiking, via ferrata, climbing. There are amazing woods. So I want to say this: Sardinia is one of the Italian regions with less loss of green belt. I think this is important because people think that Sardinia is an underdeveloped place.
Hmm.
But I don't think this way. I
Mm-hmm.
think that preserving the environment is more important. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something very paramount. It's fundamental, um, and we do have a lot of beautiful spots
Mm-hmm.
here. So you can visit Sardinia also in winter. I can assure you that you find something to do. Okay. And if it's a beautiful day, you can also swim in the sea, also in winter.
My gosh.
I've done several times. Okay, it is true that the water is quite chill, but it's
Yeah.
it's good.
Oh, that's so nice. Please tell us about your Instagram account and what you're doing with the Sardinian language, how you're reaching people, and let us know where we can find you on Instagram, on TikTok, etc., and how we can get in touch.
Let's say that everything started 2 years, no, more than 2 years ago, in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. After attending my second Sardinian language course, I decided to share a post on my profile, which is a private one, about orthography. I simply wanted to share with my followers and friends the knowledge and the new competence that I learned. So I created this slide post with the most important orthography rules, and people just love it. And I think that was the beginning of my work here on Instagram. Now I create videos about grammar, vocabulary. When I visit a place, I create a small video in Sardinian. So basically, my goal is to use the language as much as possible. And also to show people that we can not only use the language to say whatever we want, but also understand each other. And this is what I'm trying to do on Instagram. My Instagram account is Dalila_Manca, which is my name and my surname. Recently, I'm also on TikTok. On TikTok, I'm Dalila.mewme. The content is the same on the Instagram account, to be honest, but on TikTok I'm reaching another type of audience.
Yeah.
And it's quite challenging because on Instagram I have my community. They know me. On TikTok the audience is wider. Yeah. So I managed to know also what people think about Sardinian outside my community.
Yeah. I will add links to your social media in the show
Thank you.
notes for this episode so that people listening can click on the links and find you right away.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Dalila, this has been such a fun conversation, and I'm like so excited to have the chance to speak to you and to learn about your language and your culture. Is there anything else maybe we didn't get to talk about that you want to mention about Sardinian or the culture, the food, the language, anything?
Well, actually, let me say something. As I teach English, I always make a comparison between Sardinian language and English. There are some similarities. So just to make some examples, talking about grammar, in a Sardinian language, we use the progressive as in English. For example, what are you doing? In Italian would be che fai with the present simple. In Sardinian, we use the progressive as in English, ita zesi vadendi. And the present continuous is formed the same way with the verb to be plus the gerund. So this is quite interesting, and I use the similarities also with my students when I'm teaching them the present continuous. And also some structures are similar. For example, I don't know, probably it's 19th century English, but this year I was reading an extract from Dickens' Oliver Twist, and I read this sentence: the balls never wanted washing. And this is Sardinian. I stopped and I say, guys, try to translate this sentence into Sardinian, and we use the same verb, want, to say that something is not necessary. So you don't have to wash the bowls because the kids wash them with their tongues. And in Sardinian, we say the same, sustreju no ovia shakwau. Probably this is an archaic form of English, I know, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And there are also idioms that are like the same. For example, in Sardinian, we have the same expression to say hit the road. It's basically the same. Sacca stradoi. Sakai means to hit. Stradoi, it's the road.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And is it used in the same way?
Yes, basically more or less. If I say hit the road, it means that I'm leaving a place, I'm going away. I say sacca stradoi to someone if I want them to leave.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
That's great. I think that's so rare
And
too.
there are others.
Yeah.
There are even others. Yes, it's great.
Yeah, I think that's so rare to have like English and another language be like, so similar in the way that they use the phrases, or even with the progressive form. It's like that's okay. I like that.
Yeah.
How do your students feel about that when you show them the similarity between English and Sardinian?
Well, I'm afraid to say that they look more interested in Sardinian than to English. No, but they are interested. Sometimes they, at least if they are not good actors or actresses, they look interested. I think that it's easier for them to learn a language. Also, making this comparison.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I think especially for young people that maybe they're learning it because they have to. They, that makes them interested in it. It's not just, I think as adults we figure, oh, I have to learn this for a job or for my husband or for whatever. But when you're a kid, you don't really get it. You're like, why do I have to do this? So
it's true. And then unfortunately, here in Italy, they don't have many opportunity to use the language outside school. So they don't really understand why they have to do it. It's difficult that they understand why it is so important for them to learn a language.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, here in Italy, we are very monolingual. Maybe thanks to Netflix, someone now has the opportunity to listen to another language. But before, it was probably more difficult.
Yeah.
Maybe with YouTube, I don't know.
Probably YouTube. I really think about that a lot. Like when I was growing up, I wanted to hear different languages, but I didn't have the opportunity. And now if I want to hear Sardinian, if I want to hear, whatever, Turkish or Portuguese, like I can just for free on YouTube and I can listen to it. So I wonder how it is for people who learn English, because I'm really jealous. I think like English learners have so much to they have so much. They have music, they have movies, and some of the biggest musicians like Beyonce or Rihanna or The Weeknd, they all sing in English. So if you're a fan of these musicians, it's not hard to be exposed to it. But like in my case, like I want to hear more Italian because I'm learning the language, and it's impossible to find something that I like in Italian and that I can hear it all the time. Like I listen to music as much as I can, but I don't hear it on the radio. Like, for example, someone in Italy would hear like Rihanna on the radio like all day long. Thank you again for this conversation, Dalila.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to end each episode with the same question, just to have a little bit of fun. Do you have any jokes, popular sayings, or a tongue twister, or cool slang word, maybe an idiom, word of wisdom, or word of advice in Sardinian to share and to teach us how to say.
Okay, I have one.
Okay.
Is a saying, and it's fun because not only it's fun, but it is also useful to understand the Sardinian culture.
Hmm.
It is the following: Sa giustizia dividi.
Okay. You said that very fast.
Sa giustizia dividi.
Okay.
This is actually a curse. Okay. In English, it would be something like the police officers or the justice system, actually more the justice system, may send you down, may arrest you. And this was said and considered like the worst of the worst that you could hope for someone, because of the relationship that Sardinian people had with the Italian justice.
Okay.
So they ate the Savoy. I'm talking about the 18th century. They hated the Savoy, they hated the Italians, and they hated the justice system. So, saying to someone, "Sa giustizia dividi," was considered like the worst that you could possibly hope for someone. Today, of course, it is used not in the same way. So giustizia dividi, I would use it to say, probably to say, "Are you asshole?" or "you stupid?" Or something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for the.
No, it's okay. This is what I say too, is like we have to share the good words, but it's also important to know the bad words in any language because
Yeah.
you never know when you have to defend yourself. You never know when you have to speak out and, for your advocate for yourself. So it's all welcome here. And I'm going to try it. I'm going to repeat after you. We're going to take it piece
Okay.
by piece. Okay.
Okay. Sa giustizia
Sta giustizia
dividi.
dividi.
Perfect.
Sa giustizia dividi.
Just perfect.
Okay.
Super well done.
Thank you. How do you say thank you in Sardinian?
Ti doru gracias.
Ti doru
Gracias.
gracias.
Yes. Or
Okay.
simply gracias.
Gracias. Okay.
Mhm.
Gracias.
Yes, the final vowel that we pronounce is the paragogic vowel. We put it just to pronounce, to better pronounce the word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, ti
Oh.
do gracias. Mm-mm.
Thank you so much again. Oh, before I let you go, I always forget
Mhm.
this. Before I let you go, um, in Sardinia, after you've been talking to someone for a while and you're about to go your separate ways, what is the best way to say goodbye?
I would say adiosu, which is
Adiosu?
perfect. Yes, which is very similar to adios in Spain. It comes from Spain. And also azibiri. You can say also azibiri.
Azibiri?
Mhm.
I'm writing this down.
Biri. Biri means to see. So
Hmm.
let's see each other again in the
Okay.
future. Mm-mm.
Okay. I like that. That's
Yeah.
nice. So I've got adiosu
Yeah.
and azibiri,
Yeah.
Dalila.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for this conversation, and
Thank you.
I'll be talking to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.